In this video, we will log in using access and refresh tokens. We'll get the authenticated user and we will have endpoints to refresh our access tokens. Before I show you the app, I would like to remind you that this video can be combined with other videos. So if you want to use Node with any of these front-end frameworks, I provided some links in the description of this video. Also, I would like to remind you that I created another complex course regarding authentication, where you can log in using two-factor authentication with Google Authenticator and also social authentication using your Google account. For the frontend, you can pick React, Angular, Vue or Svelte. So you can get it here, or you can get all my NodeJS bundle for $9.52 a month if you are in Europe, or $80 a month if you are not in Europe. So that's it. You can check it if you are interested. Now let's build the app. So I'm in an empty folder now, and the first step to create the project, run npm init -y. This will create a package.json. So we need to install now a bunch of packages that we need in this project. We need Express, Course and Cookie Parser as a dependency. And as a dev dependency, we need types express, types course, types cookie parser, nodemon, and TypeScript. We will use TypeScript in this project, which means we need to create a tsconfig file, that JSON file, and we need this configuration. So this is the default TypeScript configuration, but these two lines are required when we install TypeORM later. Now let's create our index.js file. So let's create first a directory src. Inside we will create a TypeScript file index.ts, and let's create the Express app here. So let's import Express from Express. We will create the app, which is equal to Express, like this, and then app will use Express JSON. So all our requests will be converted to JSON when we use them. App use cookie parser. So don't forget also to import cookie parser here. This is needed when we log in with our user. We need also to add course. So let's import course from course here. And course is a problem that our browser will have a different port than the backend. And in order to allow the request, we need to add here the origins. So this is for React, this is for Vue.js, and this is for Angular. And the credentials is for the cookies. When we send a request, we will allow that our backend will send cookies to our frontend. Now let's add a simple route. So when we go to the main page, we will just return the hello message. And we want our app to listen to port 8000. When it's running on port 8000, we will console log the message listening to port 8000. With this, let's go to our package.json. Let's add a start script, and the start script will run nodemon src index.ts. Let's run npm start now. And we can see listening to port 8000. Now to test our endpoint, I will use a tool called Postman. Make sure to install this to test our endpoint. And now here I will send a GET request to HTTP localhost port 8000, and we will see hello here. So our first route is correct. Now I'll connect with my local MySQL database. Make sure to have installed MySQL in your machine. If you don't have this tool, make sure you install MySQL Workbench. And now I'll connect with my local user and my local password. My local database is node auth YouTube. I'll test the connection. It is successful, and I connected with an empty database now. So let's create now a table for this database. First, we need to install some other packages now. I'll open a new tab. Those packages are TypeORM, Reflect Metadata, and MySQL 2. We need also, as a dev dependency, types node. So we installed all the required packages. Now, in order to connect with the database, we have to create a file, orm config.json. Here we need to paste all the configuration to connect with our database. The type is MySQL, the host is localhost, this is a default port, this is my username and my password and my database. This should be your credentials. For the entity, we will map a class to a MySQL table in the database. So we will see that later. We don't want logging, and synchronize is for the entities to create database tables. And that's it. Now let's go to the index.ts, and to connect with the database, we will use the function create connection. And we need to import create connection from TypeORM. And then I will type then here. When the connection is successful, I will cut all this code and I'll paste it here. and that should be it. Let's see if we connected with the database now, and we can see listening to port 8000 again. I will stop, I will start it again. If we see listening to port 8000, it means that we successfully created a connection, and then we listen to port 8000. And this create connection will use this ormconfig.json file. Now we have a problem with this TypeORM here is highlighting, but that is my bad, because I forgot to add this module common.js in the tsconfig.json file, and now it is working correctly. Now let's add the entity mentioned here in the ormconfig.json file. I will create a folder, entity, and inside I will create a TypeScript file, user entity.ts. Here I will export a class user, and this will be an entity. Don't forget to import entity from TypeORM, and to support these decorators in the tsconfig.json, we added experimental decorators and emit decorators metadata. Now in the user, we need to add the ID as a number, which will be a primary column. So we need to add the decorator primary generated column here. Also, TypeScript expects us to initialize the ID, for example, like this in the beginning. That's why it's highlighting ID in red, but I will add an exclamation point here, and we don't have that highlight. Here it means that we don't initialize this variable. Now let's add the name as a string. This will be just a column. And let's add two more columns. So let's add the exclamation point here, and this is email, and this is password, with the exclamation point here also. Also for the email, I will add unique to true. When we register users, they will have all unique emails, and that should be it. So with this, we will just save this, and the table will be automatically created in our database. We can see all the values are stored here. We have the primary key, and we have an index for the email, which is unique. So everything is correct, and we didn't have to do anything. TypeORM did everything for us. Now let's add the registration route. For this, I will remove the test route, and I will create a new TypeScript file, routes.ts. Here I will export a function, routes, and this function will have as a parameter router as a router. And I will add this function here, so routes, and I'll pass the app inside. Now in the routes, we need to add router get post request to API/register, and we need the function for this endpoint. So for that, I will create a new directory, controller. Inside, I'll create a TypeScript file, auth_controller.ts. Here, I'll export the register function, and I'll pass the register function here, register. Don't forget also to import it from auth_controller. Let's go back to the register function. This function will have request as a request. Don't forget to import request from Express, and a response as a response. And in this request, we will send a name, an email, and a password from the request body. With these values, we will create a user. So let's do it. First, let's make the function asynchronous, and our user will be equal to await get repository. We need to import get repository from TypeORM of the user entity. Don't forget also to import the user entity. Save, and we will pass the information that we sent in the request. So the name, the email, and the password. About the password, we need to hash this password. We should not store the password as it is in the database. For that, we need to install a package, npm install bcrypt.js, and also npm install as a dev dependency types bcrypt.js. And let's import here bcrypt.js from bcrypt.js. And the password now will be equal to await bcrypt.js hash the password that we sent in the request, and the second parameter is a number. I will put 12, and that should be it. In the end, we will send the user. So let's test this endpoint in Postman. So I'll convert this to a post request to API/register, and in the body we will send a JSON with these values. So I'll send the name, an email, and a password. I'll send now this request, and as we can see, the user was created since we have an ID. And if we check the database, this user should be created and the password is hashed. So we created the user. Now we need to add another endpoint to login. So export constant login. This part will be the same. And let's add the login to our route. So this will be another post request to API/login, and the function is login. Don't forget also to import it. So let's go to the login now, and the login request will be similar to this one, but this time we'll send just an email and a password. The email will be used to retrieve the user. So I made this asynchronous. The user will be equal to wait get repository of user entity, find one with this email. And with that, we will find the user. If the user is not found, then we will return an invalid credentials error message. So that is the case when the user is not found. Then the case is we have to compare the passwords. So I will add another if condition here. Await bcrypt.js compare the password. So the first password is the password that we send in our body, and the second password is that user password value, so the hashed value. If these passwords are not equal, so I will add an exclamation point here, then I will return the same message. So I will check if the email is correct, then I will check if the password is correct. In the end, for the moment, let's return the user itself. So I will copy this, paste it in a new tab. I'll send a post request to API/login, and in the body, I'll send a JSON with the email and the password that we just registered. So if I send this request, I will get the user. If I send the wrong values, I get invalid credentials here, and for the password, the same. Only if I put the correct values, I return the user. But we should not return the user. For that, we need to return an access and a refresh token. So we need to install the package JSON web token. Also, we need to install as a dev dependency types JSON web token. Now we have to import that package. So we need to import from JSON web token. We need to import the sign function. So let's create an access token, which is equal to sign, and the payload that we will sign is the ID of the user. So user.id here. The second value is the secret value, so I will call it access secret. And the third value is the expiry time, so I want to add expires in 30 seconds. So this is the access token, and it should expire very soon. So 30 seconds is the time for this. Let's create the same with the refresh token. The refresh token will have the refresh secret, and it will expire in 1 week. So the refresh token should stay longer than the access token. Now let's create two cookies from the access and refresh token, and I will paste them here. So we will create a cookie for the access token with the access token value. It will be HTTP only, which means that the frontend won't be able to access these cookies. And the max age will be 1 day for the access token, and for the refresh token, it will be 7 days. Even though the access token will stay for 1 day, it will expire in 30 seconds, so it doesn't really matter if it stays there. In the end, we will send a message, success. And now this means now that we will log in, we don't have any cookies yet here. So if we log in now, we will get message success, but we will create two cookies, one access token and one refresh token. Now let's use the access token to get the authenticated user. So let's export a constant here, authenticated user. This will be equal to a normal function. Let's add it to the routes. This will be a get request to API/user, and the function is authenticated user. Let's go back then, and here I will wrap everything with a try catch. And if an error happens, I will return the message with the status of 401 unauthenticated. So let's get the access token via the cookies, and now we got the access token, we need to verify it. So we will get the payload, I'll cast it as any, is equal to verify. We need to import verify from JSON web token, just like the sign function. And here we will pass the access token, and we need the refresh secret, which is this one. So we'll pass the refresh secret, and if the payload is incorrect, it means that we are unauthenticated, so I will return the same message here. If it passes, it means that we can get the user, which is equal to await get repository of user, find one, and this payload contains the ID, since we stored it here. This is a payload that we got there, and that payload has the ID of the user. And here we can find the user. If the user is not found, we still return the same message unauthenticated. Otherwise, we return response send the authenticated user. So let's try this endpoint now. I'll copy this URL, I'll go to the new tab, and if we switch tabs, it means these cookies will be preserved. So when I send this request, I get unauthenticated, but still I got the cookies. Why did we get unauthenticated? Because the cookie expired since it lasts for only 30 seconds. So I have to log in here again, and immediately I have to access this user, which doesn't work because I put the wrong refresh secret here. It should be access secret. And let me try it again. Let me log in again, and immediately let me access the authenticated user. So it is working now. Still, I don't like the password here. We should not return the password when we get the authenticated user. So I will remove the password, and the data is equal to this user. So I will extract the password, and in the end, I will return data. Let's see if we get it. We get unauthenticated, but we have to log in again to get the user without the password. So we got the authenticated user, but only for 30 seconds. So we have to add the refresh token functionality in order to create a new access token. So let's do it. Export constant refresh is equal to this function. Let's add the refresh endpoint here. So this will be a post request to API/refresh. And this is refresh. Let's go back, and we will do almost the same. I will get the try part and the catch part here. But this time we will get the refresh token, and the cookie is refresh token. We need to verify this cookie, so this will be almost similar. So I'll paste it here. This is refresh token, and this is refresh secret here. We will validate the payload, and if it is valid, then we will create a new access token, just like we did here in the beginning. So I'll copy this code, and let's create a new access token. We will sign in, and the ID will be payload ID this time. So payload ID, since we store the ID of the user in the refresh token as well. And that should be it. We need also to set the cookie, like we did in the beginning. And what is left is to return response send message success. And that's it. Now, if the access token it is expired, just like in this case currently, I will copy the URL, open a new one, and this is refresh, and we'll send a post request. If we send this request now, we'll get success, and we will get a new access token, and our authenticated user will return. So every time the access token expires, we need to post to the refresh token to get a new one. So this is tedious in the backend, but the frontend should do this automatically. So let's add the last endpoint now, which is the logout. So export const logout. And let's add the logout in the routes. This will be a post request to API/logout. And this is logout. And there we will simply remove those cookies. To remove those cookies, we have to create new cookies with empty value, and the max age is 0, so they will expire immediately. And in the end, we will return message success. And that's it. So let's try this request also. This will be a post request to API/logout. And if this is successful, it means that we just remove the cookies. Now the user will be unauthenticated, and even the refresh endpoint won't work. We will return unauthenticated here. The only way to get the authenticated user is to log in again, and this time we will get an authenticated user, and the refresh endpoint will work as well. So this is how we log in using access and refresh tokens. Now you need to complete the frontend in order to complete the whole app, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this video. Thank you.